What's up, Phantom Fam? Welcome back to another episode. I'm Kate.
And I'm Nat.
And this is Wading into the Void. Boy, oh boy, do I have a jam-packed episode for you all today. In fact, I'd go as far as to say you're not ready for it. Originally, I had another topic planned to discuss this week, but when it came time to research it, I just wasn't vibing with it. So I decided to take us all to my happy place for one of the grisliest killers and most haunted spots in the U.S. Yup.
Is this the Axeman?
No, but we are headed to NOLA, baby! New Orleans, here we come. Now, Nat, you just took a guess, but do you have an inkling or one other guess as to what we're covering today?
No.
You're gonna be pissed at yourself that you didn't think of this when I tell you what it is.
I don't even think I can think straight right now.
I would, typically turn this over now to Nat, but in a change of events, today I am doing the Oracle and Tarot reading. Yes, I hope you weren't expecting a traditional episode today, because that's not what you're getting.
Plot twist, y'all. I got my period, and I'm fighting the urge to vomit.
She's fighting for the urge to live at just about this moment, so can't blame her. So, we're going to start with Oracle, of course, and we are going with the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit Guidebook by Miss Kim Kranz, because, goddamn, she is the queen of everything. So, I pulled Scorpion, and Nat, here is the card.
Ooh.
She's gorgeous. And I focused today on the future of the two of us and the podcast as a whole. So that was my intention I had set. And Scorpion means passionate, competitive, and tends towards isolation. So there's a bit in this reading that I would say applies to both of us as well as the podcast as a whole. So the Scorpion is a passionate and determined creature. Their career is very important to them, as are a few select friends. Sometimes the Scorpion's heat festers, and they focus on an unresolved event from the past, usually a situation where they were left feeling burned. The Scorpion card says, it's time to come clean about your feelings, so everyone can heal and you can get back to your usual fiery but fun self. So, when in balance, it means wild and free and fierce. When out of balance, jealous, resentful, and unresolved. And to bring into balance, use honesty and forgiveness. So, I think that one's a good one, because we got a lot of fun stuff coming up the line. We're really dedicating ourselves to this. Nat just got a new career. I'm getting started with mine, and, we're just out here absolutely fucking vibing. Now, for tarot, this is a new one in my collection. It's called the Wanderer's Tarot. This is the box. She's pretty. The cards are gorgeous. And this one, let me see if I can find out who it's by, was created by Casey Zabala. I believe I'm saying that right. And it is gorgeous. It's nothing like I've seen before. It doesn't have general descriptions. It relies more on intuition. So it gives you the suits and the numbers, and it's up to you to kind of determine all of the meaning. So, why not fuck around and find out today? That's how I felt. So I pulled the Four of Feathers. And this is what she looks like. If I can get the glare to stop going. We got a little candle in there. The feathers, Just straight up vibing. So, feathers represent the suit of desire and passion. a representative of spirit flight and associated with the fire element. And the number 4 means even or material unity. So essentially, the 4 of feathers is all about bringing into unity your desires. So we're manifesting, that this podcast really continues to grow and take off, and that's what I got from this card. And I love this deck. It's gorgeous. Highly recommend. I bought it off Amazon like every other 24-year-old spiritually inclined person. And yeah. Those are our cards for the day. So, Nat, any thoughts on that?
I really like the new tarot deck that you got.
It is very pretty, and I can't wait for you to see it in person because you're going to absolutely drop dead. The edges are they're gilded edges, so they're silver, but they're also holographic and just gorgeous. And they're very thick and they feel very nice in your hands. So you will love that deck. But now we are going to dive into what we are covering today, and it is kind of like a twofer, if you will. So, like I said, we are going to my favorite location of New Orleans, and we are covering Madame LaLaurie and the LaLaurie Mansion today.
Oh.
Yes. And I feel like I do need to put it out there first. Like every other 24-year-old girl, I was first introduced to this topic by American Horror Story Coven. Back when the show used to be good. And in my true ADHD nature, I hyper-focused on this one for a hot minute. So let's take everything I learned from years past and combine it with some fresh research and current hauntings for today's episode. First, though, I don't even know where I was going with that. So, not first, though. Let's just, issue an official big red letter trigger warning because it's gonna get graphic. If you know anything about Madame LaLaurie, you know that she was incredibly cruel and performed the most vile acts on the slaves working within her home.
Oh, it's this lady.
It is this lady. AKA one of the best characters Kathy Bates has ever played. She did such a phenomenal job.
All I can think of is Merge Mansion.
Merge Mansion?
That's Kathy Bates, right?
Merge Mansion?
You know that stupid...
Isn't that a game?
That stupid phone game that has all that lore about the grandma.
Yeah?
She played the grandma in one of their... And Pedro Pascal is also like a detective in it.
I've seen the ads with Pedro Pascal, but I haven't seen any with Kathy Bates.
Wait,
so I feel
let me
like
see.
I'm going to have to go search them.
Let me go look up her name and make sure it's the right person.
Because I absolutely adore Kathy Bates, so... You say her name and basically I'll be there. Yep, she was in one of the Merge Mansion ads.
Okay, thank you, because my internet is actually shitting its pants, and I'm gonna scream.
She actually plays the grandmother.
Yeah.
Brought to life, so that's hilarious. Okay. But it also is a play on Bates Motel, which is kind of cool, how they did her ad, so... Might have to check out Merge Mansion the game. Not sponsored, but... If you want to, you know where to find us. So,
I love those stupid ass games.
Right? They're so good. We are not going to start this episode with those terrible acts, though. I'm going to try and ease into it, after we discuss a bit of background information on Madame LaLaurie. So, let's get into it. Marie Delphine McCarty was born on March 19th, 1787, in New Orleans, Louisiana. She was one of 5 children born to Louis Barthélemy de McCarty and Marie-Jeanne L'Arable. I believe I said that right. She's French. Forgive me. Louise's parents immigrated the family to the States from Ireland in the 1730s. So the name McCarty came from the name McCarthy, which is a traditional Irish name. However, since immigrating to the States, the McCarty family were prominent members of the European Creole community, and some members of the family held well-established positions, such as governor and mayor of the Spanish-American provinces of Louisiana and Florida from 1785 to 1791. So, they were just out there. They're like, yep, we're in charge. The McCarty clan is, living the life. So there's always been this air of, elegance and extravagance and, overall just a better-than-thou vibe coming from Madame LaLaurie, as we know her. But for the sake of this show, we're going to start out by calling her Delphine, which is what she went by for the majority of her life. So when Delphine was 4 years old, the Haitian slave revolution broke out. Her uncle was actually murdered in this revolt, which could have been one of the sparks, depending on how close she was with her uncle, for how she treated the slaves working in her household later on. Not sure, don't quote me on it, but could have been one of the sparks. Nonetheless, this was for sure a turning point in the South when the heinous treatment of African Americans increased even more as the fear of insurrection took over. So basically, they revolted, and a lot of poor, sad, oh, woe is me, white people that kept them in captivity were, murdered. And when they did come out on top, the treatment for the Black Americans just went even farther downhill. So there was basically no looking back from that point. They received horrible, horrific treatment, no matter where they were. So life was just not good at that time unless you were some wealthy white man, essentially. But isn't that the moral of the story for this show? On the other side of her childhood, Delphine watched as her mother hosted lavish parties on their 1,344-acre plantation because, yes, they needed that much land.
What the fuck?
This was located between Bartholomew and Independence. So, as someone not from the area, that means jack shit to me. But if you're from the area, then you might know where it is. And it's easy to assume that she led a charmed and easy life with people waiting on her basically hand and foot. She never had to worry about a damn thing. She wanted it, she got it. Just like Ariana said. However, some of that changed.
I can't even laugh because it hurts. Just know that I'm shaking my head and grinning.
However, some of that did change when Delphine's mother passed away in 1807. And you see, it's for a decent reason, I guess you could say. Not long after the passing of Delphine's mother, her father, Louis, began to take place in a frowned upon relationship at the time. And this was with a free black woman by the name of Sophia Massante. Known throughout history as his concubine, and who gave birth to a daughter not long after in 1815.
So basically, concubine is an unmarried woman that they have sex with, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So she was essentially his mistress, right? Because he's not going to, at this point in time, marry a person of color regardless of if they're free. It's the South in the 1800s. It's just not going to happen because people are terrible. And, it wasn't like they were just having, some type of affair. They were essentially together. They were in, a passionate relationship. And this seemed to be a very popular trend amongst the McCarty men in general. as records show that many of them had relationships with free women of color and produced several biracial children. Something that we can only guess that Madame LaLaurie did not approve of as we learn more about her life and acts of cruelty against the slaves. So, like I said before, this could be another, like, turning point for her emotions, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, right after her mother passed, her father began a relationship with a black woman, which, like, oh, how terrifying. But, like, it could have been just, like, too soon for her that he moved on even in general. Even though I'm pretty sure at this time she was, like, in her late teens or early 20s. Mm-hmm. I don't really know. Delphine did marry her first husband, Ramon Lopez y Angulo de la Cad... It is so heavily Hispanic. I'm so sorry. Ramon Lopez y Angulo de la Candelaria. There's just a lot going on there, you know? And she was only 14 years old when they got married. And Ramon was 35, which, gross! But very typical for the time. As a girl, if you start bleeding, you're a woman, and men are going to take advantage of that at that time. So, you know. Yeah, I had that same reaction, so... And they got married on June 11th in the year 1800. So that was, 7 years before her mother passed away? So when her mother passed, she would have been, like, 21. But this marriage, rest assured, only lasted 5 years, as Ramon passed away while on a voyage back to Havana, however you want to say it, where he and Delphine were staying because he was in Spain for work. And the funny thing about this trip to Spain he had was he greatly pissed off the country of Spain. Oh. So he was a diplomat, a businessman, big businessman in Spain at this time, and he was interfering with their importation schedules and showing acts of rebellion simply because he wasn't getting any benefit from the relationship anymore, and he was kind of over it. So he was like, you know what, I'm going to stick it to the man, and basically he's lucky that the monarchs of Spain did not murder him when he went back, so... Instead, though, his ship struck a sandbar and Ramon lost his life in the crash, which I'm assuming he was either thrown from the ship and drowned or was crushed beneath the rubble. So, probably not a great way to go. But in this case, he left the now 19-year-old Delphine a widow and a brand new mother as she had just given birth to their first child. Delphine stayed in Havana long enough to basically bury Ramon and have her daughter baptized. And then she quickly returned home to New Orleans because that's where she wanted to be. She didn't want to be in Havana. But she did find out when she returned that New Orleans was no longer under Spanish or French rule. It was now under American ownership because, oh yeah, America, baby! We're overtaking the world at this time.
The Louisiana Purchase.
Yes, ma'am. Gotta get that steak. So, it would be safe to say that Delphine's first marriage wasn't very successful. She basically kind of got what she was wishing for, I think, at that point. Just, he would disappear and she could go on and actually live her life a little bit, you know? She's 19.
Too bad he didn't die before she had a baby. That's fucked up.
Yeah. I don't even want to think about it, you know? Because, like, she was 14. He was 35. Like...
It's disturbing.
I just can't, like, wrap my head around why any 35-year-old man would be like, ooh, 14-year-old. How nice. I want her as my wife. Like, I can't...
Literally, pedophilia is so ingrained in history and our society. It's absolutely vile.
Yes, I would agree. But I also am slightly hypocritical because, yes, I did have crushes on multiple teachers when I was 14 years old. So, you know, We out here vibing. However, Delphine wasn't unwed for very long. On her 20th birthday, so like literally a year later, she she married an older French man. Apparently she likes the older men, okay? And his name was Jean-Paul Blanc, a recent widower himself.
If you said Blart, I would have laughed my ass off. Jean-Paul Blart.
No, Jean-Paul Blanc, which I think I personally do better with like a French name than I do like a Spanish name, and I don't know if it's because they're kind of a little bit more condensed, but like reading Ramon's name kind of gave me a headache. I was like, it just keeps going. But yeah, Jean was a widower himself. His wife had just died, like I believe the year before or something like that. Unsurprisingly, this union was not one of love. At least on one side. Delphine's mother had divided her estate, you know, that like 1,300 acre plantation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she divided that between her 3 children. And Blanc, being a savvy businessman, most likely saw her inheritance as a great opportunity. Jean was actually a ruthless businessman and was very active in the slave trade, politics, and, oddly enough, pirating. So, just a shitty guy all around.
Yeah.
So, it's surprising he didn't marry her at 14. But, you know, to each their own. Delphine's inheritance was $33,007, which would be equivalent to $863,198 today.
Wow.
So that made for a hefty dowry for the marriage to her new husband, right? So you can look at that number and tell me this was one of love, but I won't listen. Upon their marriage, she also inherited her mother's downtown plantation on the bank of the Mississippi River, 52 slaves, livestock, and various farming equipment. So you might as well just double that inheritance money based on what else she was getting at the time. My throat's like real dry here. In addition, though, Delphine's father gifted the newlyweds another plantation on Charles Street and an additional 26 slaves. Because apparently she needs 3 plantations. In total, today, Delphine's inheritance would be worth well over $2 million. $2 million. Jean went on to purchase, with that money, a 2-story townhome, because apparently you're a peasant if you don't have 3 or 4 homes at this time. And this property was on Royal and Conti, next to the Bank of Louisiana, where he was the director at the time. By 1815, the pair had 4 children, so they got busy real quick. 5 if you include the daughter from Delphine's first marriage. So Jean must not have had any children with his first wife. Nonetheless, good things don't last for long. A week after the Battle of New Orleans, which took place on January 8th, 1815, Jean passed away abruptly and unexpectedly at the age of 50. This left Delphine to settle his estate, and unsurprisingly, as things go with slimy businessmen, Jean left behind a steaming pile of debt that equated to $2.5 million in today's society.
Holy shit.
So he really ran through that money. As a result, Delphine sold off most of their property except her own personal assets. This constant stream of selling lasted for nearly 10 years, But with the money that she did receive from selling various assets, she was able to purchase one of the pieces of property she was selling, along with 8 enslaved persons. These 8 slaves were a mixture of children and women of childbearing age, and in a strange turn of events, all of them died within the span of about 5 years. Due to, quote-unquote, unknown circumstances.
Interesting.
But keep this in mind as we keep going with this one, and you can most likely draw up a different conclusion. Sadly, for Delphine, though, Jean had depleted nearly all of their assets, which left her and her children in a very low place. However, it seemed that cruel luck was on her side as her father passed away in 1824. You see, it's sad that her daddy died, but he also left her a substantial inheritance which solved nearly all of her problems.
I feel like a lot of people are dying very quickly around her.
Right? Just like randomly and abruptly.
Yeah.
They're just biting the dust. A quick side note, though, is that Delphine's half-sister, who her father had with a free woman of color, was even included in his will. Which, wow, unheard of at that time, right? Mm-hmm. She received, of course, a much smaller sum than her siblings due to her biracial parentage, which, sadly, I can't say is surprising, but she did receive what would be the equivalent to $156,376 today, as well as 2 enslaved persons. So, make of that what you will. Being a person of color, I can't imagine she was very happy with the fact that she was gifted to enslaved people, but I wasn't there. I cannot speak to it. A year later, in 1825, Delphine had taken her inheritance and turned her and her children's lives around. She had undoubtedly become a cold and shrewd woman who some would describe as unpleasant to be around. Shocking, I know. She had faced too much death and had been widowed too many times, but regardless of her experience with marriage in the past, she set her eyes on the new man in town, Dr. Louis LaLaurie.
Oh, shit.
Louis came to New Orleans from France the year earlier with the goal of starting up his own medical practice. But you see, Louis wasn't a typical doctor for the time. The 25-year-old man, 25,
whoa,
delved into experimental medicine.
Oh.
And set out to, quote-unquote, destroy hunches. Today, he would be known as one of my favorite types of physicians, a chiropractor.
Oh.
So, like I said, he was really ahead of his time. He was like, snap, crackle, pop, we got this, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, we're gonna fix this shit. And surprisingly, his medical practice was actually fairly successful. With people that wouldn't be so interested in trying new things at this time, I was actually, kind of shocked. And through his medical practice is actually how Delphine and Louis met. One of Delphine's daughters needed an adjustment because of severe back pain. So, off to Dr. LaLaurie they went, and the romance began.
How old is she by here?
Oh, wait, we will get there. In fact, Delphine became pregnant with Louis's child out of wedlock.
Whoa.
At the age of 38.
Oh, shit. A cougar.
A cougar. Regardless of this fact, people of New Orleans began to, speculate and began whispering theories that Louis was only after Delphine's wealth. Because she had money again, and he was 25, so, why was he really going after a 40-year-old woman if it wasn't for her money?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe that pussy just be poppin'. I don't know.
She's the major MILF.
Oh, yes. Madame Delphine is the MILF. Can you gag with me? 5 months after the birth of their son, Delphine and Louis negotiated a marriage contract and wed at the St. Louis Cathedral, aka the most iconic church in NOLA. And your girl doesn't believe in Jesus, and we know that, but that church is gorgeous. Gorgeous, okay. However, who would we be if we didn't cover a scandal? Like, literally, this show is about fucking tea and terror, so let's do it. The date of their wedding was actually rolled back on the paperwork 6 months in the record books, because if their son was born legally out of wedlock, they would have been absolutely shunned and kicked out of high society. So they lying, you know, and anyone that was actually there was like, your kid wasn't born when you were married, but they're like, I have the paperwork, prove it wasn't it, you know? Mm-hmm. So we've discussed it a little bit here, and I'm not sure if you've done the math, but Delphine was 40 years old at this time, and Louis was 25, so they had an age gap of 50 years, right? So with that much of a gap, and at this period of time, it was very unlikely that the pair had much of anything in common, and they were often frequent reports that their marriage was not a happy one. They fought frequently and spent much of their time away from one another. They, like, literally could not stand to be in each other's presence. And with no outlet for her anger, the woman now known as Madame LaLaurie began to abuse the slaves in her service. This was also, you know, conveniently the same time that she purchased the home now known as the Haunted LaLaurie Mansion. After many more years of hate-filled marriage, Madame LaLaurie petitioned the courts for a separation from the bed and board of her husband on November 16th, 1832.
Whoa, that's big.
Yep. It is, especially at that time. She claimed that her husband had treated her, and this is a quote, in such a manner as to render their living conditions insupportable. So either he was beating the shit out of her, or she was just lying because she didn't want him there anymore. She also claimed that he had beaten her in front of witnesses, which was improper and essentially damning at that time. So, hit her in private, fine. Hit her in public, not okay. You know? Damn. Have some class. Have some standards. That's Don't hit her in public,
up.
Right?
That's so fucked up.
So fucking stupid. And after 5 months of fighting these claims, Louis gave in, basically said, you know what, fuck it, and consented. And he moved permanently to his newly acquired residence in Plaquemines Parish, allowing Madame LaLaurie every ounce of free will to torture and murder her enslaved people. So I just feel like we need to make it clear here that they aren't divorced and they aren't legally separated. It has just been written basically into law now that she no longer has to live or sleep with him as part of their marriage contract. They are still legally bound, not free to marry others, but they're not, quote-unquote, together anymore. Because divorce would be ghastly and you would go to hell at this time, okay? However, whether out of fear of Madame LaLaurie, so... The fuck did I write? Whether out of fear of Madame LaLaurie, because she managed to hide her actions from the public, her cruelty and true nature was hidden for 2 years. 2 years! Until the LaLaurie Mansion fire on April 10th, 1834. 7 slaves were rescued from deplorable conditions. And in the local paper, it was quoted that their bodies were covered with scars and loaded with chains. The victims were escorted to safety and to receive medical care because they were so badly treated and so poorly harmed that they were willing to give people that they saw as lesser than at that time medical care. It was that terrible. And at the same time, a mob saw what Madame LaLaurie had done to these people, and they were so enraged that they destroyed the furnishings of her home and ransacked the place.
Damn.
So 1834, they're watching all of these people of color that have been tortured pulled from this house, and it was so awful that these racist white folks got so mad.
Damn.
It basically just ripped apart her property. So keep that in mind and let that put that in perspective for you, okay?
It's fucking crazy.
It had to be fucking horrendous.
Yeah.
And now is the time that we're going to discuss the acts performed on the slaves being held captive by Madame LaLaurie. So once again, reiterating, trigger warning, because this is going to be very gruesome. This is the last time I'm telling you. Like, if you don't want to hear it, maybe skip ahead 10 minutes. That's my guess. 10 minutes. And if you hear me say something absolutely awful, I'm sorry. That's my guess. 10 minutes. These acts would be the end to the once respected Madame LaLaurie. These are what turned her into the monster that we all know today. So let's backtrack a bit and return to the fire, because this horrific discovery starts here. You see, the fire broke out in the kitchens, and what was originally deemed an accident was quickly discovered to have been an intentionally lit fire by one of the enslaved women who Madame LaLaurie had been starving, abusing, and chained to the stove. Essentially, this woman sacrificed herself after enduring horrible treatment and seeing what was done to her companions. She wasn't going to let it go on any longer and took matters into her own hands, knowing that she was not going to survive.
Damn.
So, that's one brave woman right there, okay?
That's fucking heartbreaking.
That's all I'm gonna say. She was like, I can't do it anymore. She was seeing what was happening to those around her. Women, men, children even, we're gonna get into. Like, it was just so terrible that she was like, you know what? I'm going down. I might take all of you with me, but it's sure as hell gonna be better than whatever we're dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm.
Once the fire ignited and began to spread, the townspeople who came to help quickly discovered LaLaurie seemingly alone in her mansion. Which was odd, because no mansion in Louisiana at this time was without slaves. So she was either in one of the sitting rooms in the property, didn't know it was on fire, and they came and alerted her, or she was exiting the property by herself, claiming no one else was there. And despite her insistence, the townspeople didn't listen to her demands to leave the house to burn, along with anyone inside it. And they began to search the property in an effort to save any enslaved people trapped inside. When they reached the attic, many people saw something that would change New Orleans society as we know it. And essentially the outlook on how a lot of people at this time looked at the treatment of enslaved people. Witnesses found several enslaved people chained or caged in the attic. A number of them were badly beaten, bruised, and bloody, but it only got worse from there. Some of them had their eyes gouged out. Their skin was flayed. Their mouths were filled with feces and then sewn shut.
Oh my god.
Another report claimed that there was a woman whose bones had been broken and reset so that she resembled a crab.
What?
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you can picture that in your head, but that same report claimed that another woman was wrapped in human intestines and that there were people with holes in their skulls and wooden spoons near them so that they could be inserted into their skulls to torture them further.
Ugh.
Many said that there were deceased bodies in the attic, and their bodies had been mutilated beyond recognition, their organs not intact or even inside their bodies. It was just the absolute worst house of horrors you could imagine. Take that and multiply it by like 50.
Ugh.
That's what you had here. It was awful. Reports vary in the number of bodies that were discovered. Some people claim that there were hundreds, while others claim that there was just the 7 that we mentioned. However, numerous claims were on record that Madame LaLaurie's cruelty extended even to her daughters, who she would beat and whip if they even tried to help the slaves in any way. But what about the enslaved, who tried to help them? And how could they try and help themselves? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just absolutely awful. There is a rumor, I couldn't find anything to confirm it, that one of Madame LaLaurie's daughters was actually romantically involved with one of the enslaved people on the property. That they were in love, and I think they believed to, like, plan to run away. I couldn't find anything to confirm that whatsoever, so that could be another rumor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course, this was hundreds of years ago, so time literally spins tales. So how much of what we're reading and what we're gathering can be verified as true, who knows? So I'm just reporting what I've seen repeated so many times, right? Mm-hmm. So some of it could be factual, some of it could be skewed. You never really know. One man was so scared of punishment that he threw himself out of a 3rd-story window, choosing to die rather than to be subjected to Madame LaLaurie's torture. That window was immediately cemented shut, and is still cemented shut and can be seen today. Another story, and this one's really sad, involved a 12-year-old girl named Leah. Leah was brushing Madame LaLaurie's hair as she was instructed and accidentally pulled a little too hard. So, you know, you're brushing your hair, you catch a little snag, right? Mm-hmm. That's what she did. She pulled through it, but oh no, how dare she? You're not supposed to pull Madame LaLaurie's hair. So she flew into a fit of rage and started whipping the girl with the hairbrush. And like the young man before her, the little girl just couldn't take any more of the abuse, and she climbed onto the roof and leapt to her death.
Oh my god.
A 12-year-old girl.
What the fuck?
Both of these reports are 100% true and verified. Both of these are verified. Witnesses even saw LaLaurie burying the girl's corpse. They reported it to the police, who were forced to fine her $300 and make her sell 9 of her slaves. Of course, none of them spoke up or batted an eye when she purchased them all back just days later.
Oh, Jesus.
Right? Because what's justice? You see, after incidents like these, the locals did begin to question Madame LaLaurie, but none of them expected to find the things that they did when they broke into the property. So, and that could be part of the reason why these townspeople, when they came to essentially warn her that her house was on fire, would not and refused to believe her that she said no one else was on the property. They knew she had to be doing something absolutely terrible. Nonetheless, like the coward, yes, coward, LaLaurie was, instead of facing the consequences for the crimes and cruelty she committed, her and her driver fled. Most likely to Paris, never to be seen again.
What the hell?
Yep. And, there are various reports that she fled to, different countries. Most of the times you see that she fled to Paris. But none of these claims are ever verified. Despite one of her daughters claiming to have received letters from her, postmarked from Paris. They were never able to 100% confirm or deny any of these instances. Surprisingly, though, around 200 years later, in the late 1930s, an old, cracked copper plate was found in New Orleans' St. Louis Cemetery, engraved with the name LaLaurie Madame Delphine McCarty. A French inscription on the plate claimed that Madame LaLaurie died in Paris on December 7th, 1842. The mystery remains alive, though, as other records in Paris claim that she died in 1849. Despite the plaque in the records, many believe that LaLaurie made it to Paris, but eventually came back to New Orleans under a new name, and continued her torture. But the fact remains that Madame LaLaurie's body has never been found. Not to this day, they have not located her corpse.
That's insane.
On that mystery, let's jump into the hauntings that now take place at the LaLaurie mansion, shall we?
Sure.
And we do not have as much information on this. I will be truthful. Many visitors and regulars of the property believe that spirits of the tortured slaves, of course, haunt the residents, and claim that it is one of, if not the most haunted location in the French Quarter. Which is a feat, because the French Quarter be wildin', okay? For 200 years, people have been claiming to experience hauntings at the LaLaurie mansion. Phantom footsteps can be heard walking up and down the halls, negative energy envelops guests, and people report hearing moaning and screams coming from the room where Madame LaLaurie performed her acts of torture. However, it would be ridiculous to assume all of the hauntings could be traced back to Madame LaLaurie's cruelty, since the house is hundreds of years old. The property saw stints as apartments and a museum before becoming a privately owned home. In fact, Nicolas Cage once owned the property.
What?
As a private residence. Yeah, Nicolas Cage owned it. I don't know why he bought it, but he was like, yeah, I'll take this.
That's really weird.
But he has since sold it, and it's now in somebody else's hands, and it's a privately owned property, where I think they spend, certain months of the year. Some rich fucker owns it, obviously. That's why the first haunting we're going to cover is actually a tenant who lived in the LaLaurie mansion and was brutally murdered in his room in 1894. So, not long after the fire, they converted the place to apartments, and this poor man got it. So, 1800s, not a good year for the LaLaurie mansion property. The police found his belongings ransacked as if someone had gone through them and assumed he was the victim of a robbery, even though nothing was found missing. An interesting account regarding this murder deals with the police interviewing neighbors about his disappearance. One of his friends claimed that he was having problems with sprites in his house. Like little fairies in his house.
What the heck?
Of course, it sounds weird, and his friends wrote it off as his imagination running wild. However, he claimed that his friend told him that there was a demon in the house who wasn't going to rest until he met his end. So, Who knows? The guy could have been going through, like, some schizophrenic, like, manic episode and accidentally murdered himself. I don't know. And, like, tore apart the apartment. But he died, and he says that demons and sprites were there, so who knows? Later on, in the 19th century, the LaLaurie mansion also acted as a school for all girls. So literally, true American Horror Story fashion, school for all girls, right? Which is kind of hilarious. At first, it had been one of the few integrated schools in the city of New Orleans. But politics during the Reconstruction era were convoluted, and soon the school was once again converted into a strictly all-girls school, a primarily African-American all-girls school. And it didn't take long for reports of physical assaults to come to light. Young girls would run up to their teachers with tears streaking down their faces to reveal, like, the exposed flesh of their forearms, which had been scratched and bruised, like, very badly. When asked who did this to them, the girls would all answer the exact same way and say, "That woman."
What?
Yes, that woman. However, these girls were too young to be aware of Madame LaLaurie and her previous actions. It was also unlikely that the teachers themselves would tell 6, 7, or 8-year-old girls about the starvation and immoral torture of slaves some decades before them. Especially young African-American girls. Like, they're not going to tell these literal children the horrific things done in the place where they're sleeping and going to school. Not going to happen. The current caretakers of the property, Lisa Hadley and Carol Williams, have both shared odd experiences, like seeing doorknobs turn on their own, as well as watching doors open and close, even slamming on occasion. They report feeling... oh my gosh, my voice. The allergies are bad. I'm sorry, guys. They report feeling like they're disturbing something, but they can't quite place what it is. They just feel like they should not be there. Lisa reported seeing the ghost of a small girl in a white dress staring out one of the windows on the second floor. And this could have been the ghost of Leah, the young girl who threw herself from the roof. Both women report having been forced to pick up remains of performed rituals after various groups have stayed the night in the home. So, like, Ouija boards and remnants of some type of spiritual communication. Like, they would have to clean this up after guests would come to the home. So, you got some, like, special stuff going on in there, whether it was, like, voodoo magic or just simple, like, acts of spiritual communication. Who knows? Apparently people are slobs and can't clean up after themselves. Every single room in this place has a different experience reported. In the master bedroom on the second floor, guests of the owner saw a black figure lurking at the end of the bed and were able to actually snap a picture, which can be seen in Portal to Hell's episode on the LaLaurie Mansion, which I totally go and recommend that you watch. In the old slave quarters, which now acts as a secret bedroom, which is accessed through the bathroom, there seems to be a residual haunting of the girl Leah, who flung herself from the roof. People have reported seeing or hearing her run from the room and have seen her sitting with her legs dangling off the roof. So everyone sees Leah. Everyone loves Leah. She's like a local favorite. In the room Madame LaLaurie used as her torture chamber, an electrician that frequently works at the property has reported being touched and even struck on the back of his head by something unseen. Like, he felt something literally be thrown and smack him in the back of the head. Like, what? I'm sorry.
Scary.
You're in the attic to begin with.
Imagine you get a concussion from a ghost.
They really said, get out. Like, why are you here? Essentially, the LaLaurie mansion has, like, this type of strange pulsing energy, which the caretakers have claimed does feel negative in several spots of the home. But as a whole, the entire house is active and constantly releasing paranormal and poltergeist activity.
So do you think that the mansion is like a vortex because of how much negativity happened there?
I would say in some fashion.
But also just because of where it's located as well?
Yeah, no, I mean, New Orleans is definitely a hub. Like, the whole place I would consider some type of vortex.
Yeah.
So you have all of this negative energy that happened in one specific location. I would definitely say yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would love to visit and find out for myself sometime, but...
Me too.
Several visitors, including famed paranormal investigators Jack Osborne and Katarina Weidman from Portals to Hell, believe the house is haunted. Of course. However, they don't think the home is as sinister as many make it out to be.
Well, I mean, you gotta think about it. They were just innocent people that were being, like, tortured and hurt. As long as she's not there.
And of course, you know, some people do claim to have connected with her and the property. Like, of course, you always get some people say, like, of course she's here.
Actually,
and I'm not gonna deny that, but...
Have you seen that H.P. Lovecraft show? What is it? It's like Lovecraftian or something like that.
No, I don't think I have.
Let me look it up and then I'll explain this episode that I watched.
Perfecto.
Okay, so there's this show called Lovecraft Country. Yeah, Lovecraft Country. It's on HBO Max. And a lot of it is based off of H.P. Lovecraft stories, which a lot of people love and hate H.P. Lovecraft. Love the creativity, hate how incredibly racist the motherfucker was.
Gotcha.
Like, he's racist, he's
Fair.
horrible. Don't recommend, like, 80% of his books because it's just racist shit. But
Great.
Some of the monsters and stuff that he creates are really interesting.
Gotcha.
So this show is
love the creator, hate the creator.
Yeah. Love the creation, hate the creator.
Yes.
Yeah. So, there's...
Like J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, like J.K. Rowling. It's a really good example. But there's this one episode, and every episode is a little bit different, but it all kind of follows the same weird story. But in the beginning of the show, these two sisters, buy this really old mansion for, like, wicked cheap. And, they turn it into, like, a boarding house for people of color. And, I'm gonna spoil this a little bit. If you want to watch the show, go watch the show. It's pretty good. We didn't watch the whole thing because we kind of were like, this is too fucking weird. Doesn't make any sense. There were, like, vampires and shit at one point. I don't know.
If you don't want to be spoiled, skip ahead 5 minutes.
Exactly. But, so what turned out to happen was their house was haunted. Really, really haunted. Because there was a doctor or somebody there who had been, like, torturing a bunch of people of color because they were like, oh, nobody's gonna, look for them. Because it was, like, the 40s.
Like prostitutes.
It was, like, the 40s or 50s. And, he had done, like, so many horrific things to these people. And when they went to the basement to try to, like, placate these ghosts and do a ritual with some type of, like, a priestess or something like that, voodoo priestess, you saw all the ghosts, and they were horrifying. Like, there was a giant man in, like, a basketball uniform with, like, the head of a baby. Like, really weird shit. And this just, like, kind of reminds me of that. So I wonder if whatever that story was based off of her
It very well could be.
Because I don't know what time period H.P. Lovecraft was around.
Mm-hmm. No, I know, like, a lot of the cruel things, of course, stem some ways from historical accounts. Because people are terrible. So no one's imagination is, like, that good, right?
Yeah,
like, you can't really...
I would definitely recommend, like, watching until they go searching for his uncle, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Because that's about as far as I watched. I watched a couple episodes after that and was like, this is fucking weird. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. It's weird. But the first couple episodes are, like, really good because it's all about, you know, at that point, segregation was still a thing. So, like, it was... had some really good, like, a lot of turmoil between these people, and I was invested. Like, I hope these people, like, they got to beat up a bunch of these racist white dudes, and I was like, yes, awesome.
We stand, yes.
And then this whole weird-ass story about these, like, people being tortured in the basement and, like, mixing up their bodies and, like, giving a baby, like, human-sized arms and shit like that. It was weird. It's so weird. But this just reminded me so much of that.
I mean, like, honestly, I can draw the comparison. So,
because it was a big, like, it was a big mansion, too. It was, like, a big old house. And they probably were in, like, New Orleans or something. So, it, because...
Yeah. Down in the bayou.
Yeah, because they had that voodoo priestess come. So, I don't know.
Yeah. You know, maybe check it out if you're looking for something new to start.
It's weird. That's all I'll say. It's really fucking weird. I don't get it.
Regardless of anything that we've just talked about, the insidious nature of the hauntings, you know, kind of ignore them. The fact remains that terrible and unspeakable events took place at the LaLaurie mansion at the hands of a woman who could claim the title of America's first female serial killer.
And her story kind of reminds me a little bit of the, what is her name? The Blood Countess?
Elizabeth Bathory.
Yes. It kind of reminds me of... Is interesting because they were both really, really young when they got married.
And both very into torture.
Yeah. They have a lot of similarities, which are kind of weird.
And how they performed their acts of, like, torture and serial killing isn't typical for, like, a woman abuser.
But
so I could definitely see where you would come to that conclusion.
But the way that they torture are also kind of similar. Where, well, one was, like, killing people and apparently bathing in their blood. But
it is also claimed that Madame LaLaurie basically used the blood of her tortured slaves as, like, weird face masks. Because she thought their blood would bring her a youth-like appearance. So, they are very similar.
And they're, like, 200 years apart?
I believe so. I think Elizabeth Bathory was the 1600s.
Yeah. It's just really interesting. You wonder, like, what kind of caused a person like that to do that. And I know we talked about Elizabeth Bathory having, like, brain trauma or something, right?
Yep.
Or epilepsy or something like that.
Epilepsy, that's what it was, yep. I mean, it could just be the fact that Madame LaLaurie saw these horrific acts being performed just from a young age, and she kind of thought, like, in some twisted fashion that it was, like, her right to do whatever she pleased.
Also, here's my other question. Because what's really interesting to me is that she's this person who was torturing these people horrifically, but she married that 25-year-old doctor. He apparently was beating her up. Was he partaking in the torture as well? Was he aware of the torture?
According to records, he had absolutely no idea that it was happening. But you also have to keep in mind that at this time, they were not living together.
That's true.
So it very well could be true that he did not know. That she could have kept this side of herself hidden from him when they were together.
It's just so interesting to me that if he was, like, beating her up and stuff like that, like, why didn't she just kill him or, you know, torture him or whatever? Like, I mean, I guess she has a specific, like, target that she has for, you know, people of color. But it's just, like, what is different? If she's this horrible person, like, it's just so interesting how the psyche works for people who are just emotionally disturbed.
Yeah, and it could be a fact that she only hurt people that she perceived as lesser than her.
Yeah.
So, like, her daughters, she would hurt them if they tried to do anything for the slaves, and it could be because they were her daughters. They had to show her respect. But her husband, in her mind, because of the time she lived in, the class she was in, she was below him. So
which is crazy because
this weird
she
dichotomy.
Basically gave him everything with her wealth.
Yeah.
It's just such a fascinating, like, historical story. And
I would just love to get into their mind for, like, maybe a day.
Yeah.
Just to see, like, how it functions. Like, because it just makes no goddamn sense. The, like, thought process.
Well, like, 90% of these people are delusional in some way. Because
incredibly delusional.
no person in their right mind, unless they're, like, missing their emotions or, you know, like, missing empathy or something like that, have some type of severe brain damage. They're not going around and torturing people by stirring up their fucking brains with a spoon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, who thinks of that?
I have no... Madame LaLaurie, apparently.
Yeah,
but
it's just crazy. Like, where did that come from for her? Like, was her parents torturing them like that and she got it? Because I know...
Yeah.
Elizabeth Bathory, her husband gifted her a torture chamber, like, for their marriage. And her aunt, like, showed her how to do it, torture or whatever, right?
I believe it was her female lover, some people say, who was significantly older than her. But if you look back at Madame LaLaurie, her father was romantically involved with a person of color.
Yeah, it just
so I can't imagine he's, like, torturing.
It's just
I mean,
weird.
he very well could have raped her, sexually assaulted or something. We don't know really what their quote-unquote romantic relationship was like.
Yeah.
You know, like, they could have said, oh, yes, it was a romantic relationship, but looking at the times, I feel like the chances of that actually being true are quite slim. So...
it's just so...
a lot to process.
Yeah, it's just a lot. A lot.
And that, my friends, is the story of the diabolical Madame Delphine McCarty, known as Madame LaLaurie. And the mansion she once called home.
It's just insane. Do they do tours of the mansion?
I'm not sure if they do any more. I know that, like, all of the New Orleans ghost tours, like, it's definitely a stop on all of those locations.
But it's like a walking one, like a walking tour.
where they go through like a brief history of the acts she committed and the hauntings and what people see. But I am not sure if you can like go into the property any longer and tour it.
Because actually Haley and Dana were talking about this. We were talking about planning a trip to New Orleans. We should definitely do one of those candlelit tours, like at night, where you have like lanterns and stuff.
Yes. Straight Paul Revere style.
Yeah.
Yes.
The fucking ghosts are coming. The ghosts are coming. But like...
the ghosts are coming.
Because they walk you through the cemetery and stuff like that, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I feel like we all need like a deep breath after that one, right?
It's really heavy. And what's even more sad is like a lot of them probably didn't have their names recorded.
Oh, of course.
So we can't like read out their names of like the people
the
who
only
were
name
dead. Yeah, we
I
named
was able
like
to pull was Leah's.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. It's just
but there's
really
still
sad.
God knows how many others.
Yeah.
Yeah, my heart just aches and goes out to the people that suffered at her hands. And if you're anything like me, I'm a very visual person, so researching and writing this definitely took a toll on me, because I could like visually picture these things in my head, right? So it was heavy to say the least. And it took me a hot minute to write this and research it. So
I actually, one of our next episodes, I'm gonna be researching something.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And it's really fucked up.
So strap your seatbelts, everybody, I guess. Like, god damn. Like, regardless of this fact, like we just talked about it, the LaLaurie Mansion is still on my bucket list of places to visit, right? Because, like, it's so rich in history, and you gotta see it, right? Like, even the taboo of it all.
At least to go and, like, respect the poor people that were, like, tortured.
Mm-hmm. And, I want to give you the chance to, like, give a couple sentences of your complete thoughts of the whole thing. I know we just went into it a little bit, but kind of, wrap it up a little bit on a nice big bow.
I definitely want to... I really wish there was, like, a show or, like, a specific person who did, like, psychological breakdown essays.
Oh, that would be good.
People like her and, like, the Blood Countess. I really wish we could, like, dive into their psyche and really understand what they were thinking when they came up with these ideas, and what deprives you so much as a human that you are willing to commit such horrible acts on people who are quite literally innocent and forced into a horrible situation already. Like,
psychologists, listeners, and friends, please sound off with your thoughts.
Yeah. I would be really curious to just have an episode with somebody who's like a psychologist or like a psychology major or something come on and talk to us about some of the worst, like, serial killers in history. I think that would be a really
that
cool
would be
episode.
Great. That would be really good. Maybe one day we can pull that off. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Maybe one day.
Or make, like, some type of series about it or something.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah. Well, Phantom Fam, that brings this episode to a close. And with that being said, if you want more Wading Into the Void content, be sure to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Wading Into the Void. I'm not even going to go and throw TikTok out there anymore. We don't fucking use it. So, Facebook and Instagram. But if you're looking for a more relaxed, like, chatty atmosphere, you can join our Discord server, where you can, sit and chit-chat with us and some other spooky, obsessed people. So, that's that. And typically about right now, I would throw it over to that.
But
I'm going to chat about our Patreon today. Weird. right? Mm-hmm. Well, no worries. Because I'm just here to tell you that we have finally decided to pull our heads out of our asses when it comes to our Patreon channel.
So basically, Katie has decided to pull both of our heads out of our asses because I have done quite literally nothing.
We are posting some fun polls and interesting content, and we'll be popping in there to chat with you all every now and then. Mm-hmm. So, that's where Nat's contribution is going to come in. She's going to come in and be like, what's up, fuckers? And
I bring the personality. That's right, y'all. My medicine's finally started to kick in, so now you're getting Nat and not a corpse.
Can you tell when she took the ibuprofen? Or whatever it is that she took, Midol? Chances are that you've probably heard the announcement I released last week, but for the sake of those who haven't heard it, go listen to it. Let me break it down for you now, right? Mm-hmm. Real hot. I went through and completely reworked our tiers to be more inclusive and promise content that we can actually deliver on. So, I feel like that is the biggest hang up we had when we first started using our Patreon. Mm-hmm. We didn't really have things that we could actually deliver. Mm-hmm. We were just starting out, but we were promising these things that, God damn it, we definitely couldn't do. So, we have 5 tiers, and they range from $1, $5, $10, and 2 more expensive tiers at $25 and $35 a month.
Whoa.
But don't worry.
Be the pod sugar daddy. Bring it back. Bring it back.
Pod sugar daddy.
The pod daddy. We'll literally make you your own, sweatshirt line of pod daddy.
Yes. But don't worry. Every tier offers some great perks for the price. So you don't have to be a pod daddy to get some awesome shit.
That's true.
For the sake of saving time, I'm going to shout out the tier that is going to bring you what I consider the most bang for your buck. And that's our $10 tier. Mm-hmm. This tier is called the Old Castle Ghost tier and offers the chance to vote on topics of upcoming episodes. So, let's say we're like, hey, what do you guys want to listen to next? And we're like, oh my god, I want you to talk about demons, or talk about the Goatman Bridge, or talk about Ed and Lorraine Warren and some of the crazy shit they did, right? Mm-hmm. You get to pick. You get to decide the topic of upcoming episodes. And, that's so fun, because it's not just us going at it, you're getting involved too. And you'll also get early access to any virtual events that we host in the future. And yes, that is a possible hint of things to come. This tier also includes in-show shout-outs. So,
Yo, hey, that's such a good idea!
Right? It's
Sorry,
okay.
I didn't approve any of these, guys. She just did it because she's a marketing genius.
I'm like, this is what we're fucking doing. You're gonna like it. That's how it's gonna be. No, but you subscribe and you help support us monetarily, and I'm gonna be like, hey, Sandra from Texas.
You know what?
Thanks, chick.
So, okay, here's my question. Are we shouting them out every episode?
One-time shout-out.
Okay. Should we list them in the description of the episode also?
We can do that as well.
Okay.
So yeah, you're gonna have your moment to shine, right? You're gonna get it. Everyone's gonna know that you are a big fan of Wading Into the Void, mm-hmm. and that you have helped us get to where we are. Mm-hmm. Which is pretty great. And while we're at it, I'm going to shout out our first 2 patrons who have been supporting us literally since the beginning. And that is CL and Dylan. So thank you both so much for being there for us since the beginning. And, check out the tiers. See if you want to change anything, right? Yeah. I mean, it's totally up to you. This tier also includes access to a private Discord server.
Ooh.
Yes. Private, where you can chat with Nat and me, as well as your fellow Phantom Fan patrons. So this is an exclusive spot for you to share your ideas on episodes, like other things that you'd want to see. Like, say you hated the Lizzie Borden episode that we did. Be like, bitch, don't do shit like that anymore. Like, this is your time to really give back your thoughts to the show. And just sit there and joke around with us. I mean, why the hell not?
I'm wondering if we could just make, like, locked channels in our server already.
Yep. And that's what I'm thinking.
So that way it gets people into the public server, but then they get extra tiers, which we can set up and hook to our Discord. They'll get a special little emoji and status, and you'll be able to know who is a Patreon patron.
As the morbid girls say, Patronus.
Patronus.
Yeah, so that's Nat's domain. That's the part she gets to control about all this shit. And
it's pretty
she's going to do with it what her heart's desire.
It's pretty easy. I can do that in like 5 minutes. So that's cool. I'll do it.
But the best thing I personally think about this tier is that once a year, you will receive an exclusive goodie box of Wading into the Void merch. That's right, exclusive merch. Things that you can't buy in our merch store. Just stuff that I have designed specially for you.
Can I get a box?
I mean, I guess so, since you co-host the show.
Yeah, we need our own special merch. We'll technically have our own special merch for Paracon!
Which we have already been to by the time you're looking at this.
No?
That we're currently at when you listen to it.
I was like, what are you talking about? It's coming out this Friday.
No, but I mean, that's amazing. It can be anything from specialty drinkware, stickers, magnets, anything just really fucking cool.
Wait,
right?
Question, have you already designed these, or you're, like, taking ideas?
I am taking ideas.
Can
this could be one of the things where the listeners submit what they want.
Design something?
Oh my goodness. Sure, we will also include something that Nat designs in every
No.
box.
I'll design just one product. You'll have to guess which one it is. It's not like it'll be obvious. But
I'm here for it.
I have an idea that I've been wanting to do, and I want to do it myself. As much as I love Katie, everything that Katie does, I absolutely love and adore. But I'm like, I want to do something and contribute. Okay.
I love it. I'm here for it. Let's do it.
Okay.
We'll do it. So you guys can guess, It'll be fun.
I'll leave, like, a little hint on it. Like, I'll put it, like, an N or something somewhere.
Signs it on whatever's hers. Like she's an artiste. So, basically, that's it. And I think these new tiers are going to be really cool. I think they're going to bring some great value to you guys that are listening. Because what better way to show appreciation for all that you do for us than to thank you in the form of Patreon? So, if you are interested in becoming a patron, or at least interested in learning more about our options, you can find us on Patreon by searching Wading into the Void. We'll be the only ones that pop up, and why is that, Nat?
Because of our fucking amazing-ass name!
Exactly! We'll also be sure to insert a link in the description for easy access for those of you lazy little ladies out there. In other exciting news, Nat, do you want to chat about our new merch releases and how the wonderful Phantom fam can shop them?
Bruh. We got cryptids. We got more fucking cryptids. We have one cryptid that Katie designed, right? 2 different colors. Yes. I don't know if the one's still pending.
White and black.
Okay. So we have white and black, which fucking amazing. I already bought stuff. I already bought, like, pillowcases, all that shit that I'm putting on my couch.
That's right. You want to sleep on my shit? Now you can.
Now you can. But don't sleep on it. physically sleep on it. We got the UFO, which is fucking cool. I just got one of those travel mugs. It looks awesome. Yes. I'm so excited. We have the new cryptid sticker designs from Dylan, which are pixel art cryptids. And I will have to check, but I'm letting you all know now if
they're all up.
Oh, they're all up. Okay. We did not have the Jersey Devil in the beginning because it was pending and they needed to check it. Somebody needed to manually check it because it had the word devil in it or whatever. So
#vendor tings.
#vendor tings. So every one of them is up now. I think we have options for bucket hats too. If you want a little baby on a bucket hat.
Yes. Our pixel art by Dylan is available exclusively in bucket hats. It is the only design we have available in a bucket hat.
Now? Woo! See, we need to bring back the old one, the old design, because I miss it already. But, we also have one last design that Katie did, and that is the tarot design.
Yes.
Which I'm going to fight tooth and nail with Spreadshop to get a blanket. Because I think that
it would be amazing as a blanket.
That design would look fucking baller as a blanket. And I would have it hanging as a tapestry.
Yes, so, yeah. I would love it, right?
Yeah, we have so many cool new designs, and we're so excited to see people wear them. If I see somebody wearing one of our merches that's not fucking me, I will cry. I'll shit my pants. I'll cry. I'll piss. I'll roll around in it. I'll bury myself like a fucking ostrich. I'll just be so happy.
Yes. And on that, we're gonna fucking close this bitch out.
Yeah, this is a long-ass episode. I have poor Wit waiting in her car outside. So we're gonna go get McDonald's.
Nothing stops until Wading into the Void says it does. Thank you! Until next time, Phantom Fam. Know that no one is better than anyone else, especially because of the color of their skin. Don't do harm to others, and keep it as fucking iconic as the city of New Orleans. Catch you next week.
Yes, Queen!